Darien Harris. I've gotten a lot of questions on a lot of the things the players have been doing in the off season. They're not only in the weight room working out, but they've been doing a lot of stuff with Darien. He's here to talk about that here today. If you have any questions, feel free to enter in the chat. But Darien, I don't know if you just want to get started a little bit while we wait for some questions, but just some of the priorities that you have taken on since the season has ended, and some of the things that you're really trying to get across these guys.
For sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about what we're doing off the field, which is, as I think everyone knows, just as important, if not more important, than what these guys do on the field. Obviously, last year was an interesting circumstance, especially for player development for myself, because with COVID, with the civil unrest that transpired after the murder of George Floyd, with everything that was going on in the country, we had to shift our focus from what I would say we normally do player development wise, whether it's career networking, financial literacy, things like that, to voting rights and registration, education on being social justice warriors, teaching our players how to speak out and things of that nature. So what I'm really looking forward to this year is kind of getting back to what I would say is regularly scheduled programming. Even though all those things are incredibly important, we're going to still continue to focus on those things. Just getting back to what we want to our players to be just to have opportunity to experience, so that they're ready to transition whenever their playing career is done. So I guess I give you the first few months since we're on month 3 of 2021 of what we've really been focusing on, and then I guess give you a little bit of an overarching look at what we're doing for the rest of the year. But January was the focus on onboarding of our transfer players coming in and our early enrollees, freshmen. I can say that all 10 of those young men have done an exceptional job since their first day on campus. They've been incredibly attentive and really embraced what we do here at Michigan State. And they've been a tremendous asset to our locker room. And they've had a tremendous impact on our players. I really pay a lot of attention to how our players interact. And especially when you're bringing in not just freshmen, but transfers from different places, different locations, to see how they ingratiate themselves into what we do and who we are, Spartan Dogs. They've done a great job of doing that. Got to give a lot of credit to our former players for helping with that. We were able to create what's called a Spartan Dog playbook to give to all our new players, so whether that's new freshmen when they come in or transfers coming in. And it just outlines what it means to be a Spartan Dog. We also had players last year, about 50 or so former players sending videos of what it means to them to be a Spartan Dog, and we're able to show that to our team and to our new players. We will not be releasing that probably. That's something for in-house, but it does a great job of outlining what it is to be a Spartan Dog, since that's really, really important to our culture. And within this playbook, we have about 15 characteristics, 15 traits that really outline what being a Spartan Dog is. I took traits that were overlapping from these videos and put it in this playbook. We also have pages that focus on the championship teams that from here, whether it's national championship teams or Big Ten title teams. So just so our guys that are new know the history of Michigan State football. So they get that on day one, go through that, watch the video, and they get a sense of what it means to be a Spartan Dog. So that's really what January is about. It's all about onboarding. And as we continue to do throughout the year, as we've done since I was playing here, since I was a freshman here, meeting with the freshmen every single week, myself and Coach Lorenzo Guest, and keeping it real is something that's really big and important to us. Moving on to February, we really wanted to focus, as the entire athletic department did, on Black History Month. Again, we wanted to continue the education that we really started to hit extremely hard last year based on what was going on in the country. And with our Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Ashley Baker, coming in, collaborating with her on what she thought that we should highlight, we both agreed that it would be really important to highlight Michigan State's Black history specifically. So if you all saw on social media, whether it's from the football page, the overtime program Twitter page, or the rest of athletics, the DLC, all those pages, there was a lot of focus on Michigan State's history. It's dating back to the 1966-67 national championship teams that integrated college football, and all the way up through where we are today. We were fortunate enough to be joined by Gene Washington and Clinton Jones in February. They spent over an hour on Zoom with our entire team, telling their story and allowing our players to ask questions, and just to have them too, as well as Jimmy Ray and others from that time as a resource to our team is incredibly important. We also ended February with our partnership with the entrepreneurship program here, the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. That's something that I think is going to take our program on and off the field and this entire athletic department to the next level. Kind of how that came about was that program has been in place in Michigan State for the past, I believe, 6 years. But as an athletic department in the football program, we never tapped into it for whatever reason. There's a gentleman by the name of Curtis Daniel who played here at Michigan State. He played in I think his last year was 1990. He was a DB here. Actually, never played a down here. Had a neck injury that ended his career, but that allowed him to explore things outside of football. And he now is the owner of Patchwork Recording Studios down in Atlanta, Georgia. Any artist that you can think of in the hip hop and R&B world has been through his studio and recorded at his studio. He's also a resident with the entrepreneurship program here. He contacted Coach Tucker, myself, Elliot Daniels, and Lorenzo Guest about this program and said, we got to do something with them. That was on February 3rd, or February 1st, actually. By February 2nd, I'd already set up a meeting with 3 of the faculty members with the Burgess Institute. By the next week, myself and Coach Tucker, along with Alan Haller and Elliot Daniels, went and toured the Hatch, which is the incubator here on campus for entrepreneurship. And we had our creative team go over and shoot the video of that. And by last Wednesday, the 24th, I believe, we announced a partnership. That partnership has allowed us to first launch what's called an entrepreneurship training camp, which is a 6-week seminar between our players and the entrepreneurship program here on campus, 7:30 p.m. every Wednesday for the next 6 weeks, started last week, where it's going to teach our players what's called an entrepreneurship mindset. So week 1 is life after sports, problem solving in the world. Week 2 is a formation of teams, ideations, entrepreneurship mindset. Week 3 is value proposition, coming up with ideas. Week 4 is business models. Week 5 is resilience, risk taking, storytelling. And week 6 is we're going to actually have these teams. We broke the guys up into groups of 5. They're actually going to pitch an idea, and we're going to crown an entrepreneurship quote unquote champion. We had 52 players on it last week. Coach Tucker made it optional, but highly recommended. And to have 52 players sign up to do something like that on a Wednesday night as a student athlete is exceptional. We've never had any type of buy-in like that before in anything that we've done. We've already had a lot of players reach out to the entrepreneurship program directly with ideas they have. We're also going to take players in groups over to the Hatch so they can tour the Hatch, which is again on Grand River. And you can take any business idea you have in any regard, go over there, and they will walk you through the process all the way up from idea to launching that business. It's essentially free of charge for any student on campus. They through their grants and their funding handle the initial marketing, graphic design, business model, business plan, all those types of things, and teach you how to do that. So for us to be able to tap into this program as a football program and an athletic department is huge. The one thing we also did last week was we had a Spartan Dogs meeting that I put together. We had 120 former players on that meeting, all the way from guys that played in the 60s with Clinton Jones was on there and a couple of his teammates, all the way up to guys that got done playing last year. Guys that are in the NFL were on that call, guys that are doing things in business and everywhere in between, guys that are recently graduated and looking for opportunities, and guys that have been established in their field of work for a long time. So it was 120 players. We were joined by Athletic Director Beekman. He gave an initial statement. We were joined by Deputy Athletic Director Alan Haller, who of course is a Spartan Dog as well. I was the moderator for the call. Had Coach Lorenzo Guest talk about strength and conditioning, and then Coach Tucker ended the call for about 20 minutes, and we opened it up to questions. The main reason we wanted to do that is because I wanted to introduce what's being called the Iron Sharpens Iron Initiative, which is going to be a career networking program between former players and our current players. So it's going to be our own kind of version of LinkedIn. We're doing it through Game Plan, which is our educational platform that we send players weekly courses on. And they also have a mentorship program, mentorship platform within the website, within the app that we can customize to ourselves. So I took that and said, how would it look if we took every single former player that ever played here and housed their career data and career information on it? So we know where they work, what they're doing career-wise, where they're located at, what they majored in, what their interests are, and what their specialty is, and house that under one roof and one database. Within that database is also our current players. So our current players can see where our former players are and where they work, and what they're doing career-wise. Our former players can also network with each other. And then I can also toggle certain former players to serve as mentors for our current players, which will launch our mentor program. So again, it's called the Iron Sharpens Iron Initiative. I was able to show our former players on that call the sign up page, which is all put together. Game plan works incredibly fast with that. And I would say in the next few weeks, we're going to be launching that, which I'm really excited about. Coach Tucker is huge on mentorship and making sure that our former players are, of course, ingratiated within the program, but also mentoring our current players. So we're going to have a lot of success, I think, with that. It's going to be a real huge benefit for us for now and for years to come, because we're just going to continue to add to that database. Other than that, I think that's kind of what the last few months have been. It's been incredibly busy, but incredibly fortunate to get the opportunity to implement a lot of these things. We ended Black History Month with my sit-down interview with Coach Tucker, talking about being a Black head coach. There's only 8 in Power 5. There's only 13 in FBS. There's only 3 Black head coaches in the NFL. So we really wanted to, again, highlight our own, but also give Coach Tucker an opportunity and a platform to speak on that. You see in the NFL, Mike Tomlin sat down on Real Sports on HBO and kind of did a segment on that. I know Coach Loxley over at Maryland has done some things in that regard. So we wanted to make sure that Coach Tucker got an opportunity to do that as well. And then we're continuing to map out the rest of the year. March is going to be a really big focus on mentorship, career services, and end with our career combine. May is going to be the time for internships and job shadowing opportunities. June and July will be financial literacy and leadership development. August, we'll do public speaking and media training with the great Ben Flieger on here. It's going to put that together for us. And then September, October, November, since it's the season, will be mental conditioning, and we'll continue to use game plan to supplement what we do. So really busy time in terms of player development, but Coach Tucker buys into this, and not just buys into it. He is huge on doing things like that. When it came to the entrepreneurship program, for example, again, we found out about that on February 1st. When we met with the entrepreneurship program that next day, he asked him, he said, "How long has this program been in place here at Michigan State?" They said, "Oh, it's relatively new. It's about 6 years old." Coach Tucker said, 6 days old is new to me. 6 years, that's not new. 6 days old is new, and maybe that's pushing it. So why aren't we doing something with you all yet? And they said, "Well, we kind of tried to talk to the program before, and things fell on deaf ears or whatever." He said, "Well, we need to have this going." And he said, "When can we have this going?" I said, "Coach, we can get this rolling next week if you want." He said, well, why didn't we do this yesterday? So that's the speed that Coach Tucker moves at. And I really appreciate that, because that's the speed I like to move at also. And just my overarching plan is to make sure that our student athletes have a better experience at Michigan State than I did. And my experience was phenomenal. So I already know it's a challenge to make that happen, because if I could do this all over again, I'd pick Michigan State 11 out of 10 times to attend to be a student athlete. If I can make it even better than my experience, then that means I'm doing my job to the best of my ability. So with that, I'll kind of wrap up my spiel and open up for questions.
Appreciate it, Darren. Appreciate that overview. We have time for a few questions. We'll go to Lindsey Huddleston. Lindsey?
Hey, Darren, outstanding job as always. I'm just curious if there are any pros and cons to you being an alum, Spartan Dog in particular, meaning you can talk about the great things you're doing or your experience, but talk about, are you ever too close to the program? Are your experiences ever too emotionally tied to having played it that you have to step back a little bit? Or does that all work together as one?
I think it all works together as one, just because that's how Michigan State is. We're really family oriented. We're big on tradition. We're big on culture. So I'm always looking for ways to improve, just like I think everyone else is here. And to have other Spartan Dogs in the house, to have Lorenzo Guest, to have Courtney Hawkins, to have Harlan Barnett, to have Kevin Vickerson here, and then to be able to use our former players as a resource, which Coach Tucker is big on. That just, again, it makes my job a lot easier, but it also makes it worthwhile. And I don't really view this as a job. Like, this is a dream opportunity for me. So I'm going to put my all into this, because it's about the student athlete. I'm here for the student athlete. I'm not here for personal gain or anything like that. I'm here to make sure that the players on this team have the best experience possible, that they can grow to be, honorable and great young men, that they can grow to be great fathers and great husbands one day, that they can go out into society and make a difference and make an impact. So everything we do, it has meaning behind it. And again, I think that, I'm not really an emotional person anyway, so it's not that hard for me to take the emotions out of certain things. But of course, I do want to see us do well because I do, love this university. I love this institution. I want to see us win. But beyond that, and again, when I'm talking to recruits, I say, whether you choose to come to Michigan State or not, I want to be a resource for you so that you have a great experience as a student athlete, because I'm here for the student athlete. There of course is the football side of things, and I want to win as many games as possible and hoist championship trophies. But at the end of the day, it's about the student athlete and making sure they have a great experience so they can go on into life, make an impact in society, and be successful.
Our next question is from Matt Wenzel with MLive.
Hey, Darien, when we talked to you last spring, you said you thought you were pretty sure your role would kind of evolve and change as it went around, and you highlighted some of those earlier. The overall focus seems to be the same as when we talked to you, almost a year ago. But I mean, how close or how far away from you have you been from what you've been doing over a year to what you thought coming in? Granted, you don't know what's going to come up next.
For sure. I think that the start of this year has definitely gotten me to the point where it's what I have been hoping to do. Again, last year was just unprecedented for everybody. So it also had some elements of what I was hoping to do and planning on doing, specifically when it came to, educational, social justice, focusing on voting and things of that nature. It actually gave us an avenue to really implement that in without a lot of pushback. But this year, again, with implementing, partnerships with what we already have on campus, that's something that was always going to be big for me. We got to use who we got here. Michigan State is a huge campus. It's an excellent school. It's one of the top, schools in the world. We got to use what we have here on campus to enhance our program and also at the same time enhance what they're doing. So being able to take an entrepreneurship program that's top 15 already in the country, maybe partnering with us can boost them into the top 5, which we'd love to see. And of course, it also helps our players. So ultimately now, again, coming into this year, with the I guess I'd say, free reign that Coach Tucker gives me to bring forward ideas. It's really exactly as I've wanted it to be, because it's going to be ever growing. I touch every single aspect of the program, which is what I love the most about it. And Coach Tucker doesn't he doesn't hamstring anybody. He doesn't say, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. He says, bring me new ideas, continue to push things forward, continue to advance things forward. So that's what I saw this job being. It was an opportunity for me to bring forward my ideas and for it to be ever changing. And it's definitely been that.
And just out of curiosity, with the NCAA giving everybody an extra year, you got those seniors that, if they want to come back, it's got to be a two-way street. Have you had any conversations with guys individually about, whatever their circumstances may be, from playing time to injuries to what they want to do professionally, to be, is this, talk it out, is it in their best interest to come back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the one part that, of this job that kind of gets overlooked. And I guess I don't really highlight it as much as I should have, is just those one-on-one conversations that I do have with players. Haven't been there, haven't gone through, of course, 4.5 years in the program, gone to be able to be a professional athlete, weighing those options of how that process works. So I can be a resource in that regard as well. And a lot of these players, they're smart. They know that they're going to make the best decision for themselves. For the guys that left, early last year, they had to make the best decision for themselves. And we talked about it. We talked through pros and cons. And when they ultimately made their decision, it was like, okay, now we got to do everything in our power to get you drafted into the National Football League. And it's the same with the players that decide to come back. It's like, okay, how is this going to be worthwhile for you? What can we get you in? What can we get you experience-wise in so that it enhances what you're doing on and off the field, so that you can, of course, get an opportunity to play in the NFL if you want that, but also so you can transition into your career. So if you're coming back for what would be, technically a 6 year or something like that, it's like, okay, you probably already have your undergrad, you're working through a master's, you may already have that. It's like, okay, now what is there for you to do? Is it an internship? Is it an opportunity to work? Is it getting you connected with certain people within the industry that you want to go into? Is it you mentoring current players? Is it you now starting a business now that we have this connection with the entrepreneurship program? It's what is a benefit to you in terms of coming back? And then in terms of playing time, I just tell them the same, give them the same advice that I heard during my time playing, is that you ultimately control that. You control the opportunity that you have to get on the field with how hard you work, how much you study film, and how much of a resource you are to our team. It's a very competitive sport. there's 120 guys, 120 guys ultimately on the team, 11 starters on O, 11 starters on D. I'd say maybe anywhere between 30 to 40 guys total play during a game. So it's very competitive to get on the field. Ultimately, you control that with your work ethic and how you approach things day to day. And if you're doing the extra things to get out there that maybe somebody else isn't doing, it'll work out for you.
Thanks, Darren.
Our next question will go to Stephen Brooks.
Hey, Darren. I wanted to ask you about the call with former players and just that dialogue. I mean, what's sort of your message to them as the program, still turning that page kind of, and what are they curious about? Because I'm sure, not many of them have been around in this past year and everything. What sort of conversations are going on between the former player groups?
Absolutely. The first thing that they wanted to know is, do they have an opportunity to be a part of what we're doing? So whether that's being around or being involved or getting access, that's what former players want. And my message just stems from the head man. It stems from Coach Tucker, which is that it doesn't matter when you played here, what years you played here, whether you won a championship or didn't win a championship, whether you were a walk-on, whether you were a scholarship, whether you played it down or not, you are always welcome in our building, just not during COVID. So if it's not COVID and our building is not a fortress and it's not on lockdown, you can hit me up 15 minutes before you show up. Hey, Darien, I'm coming through. Just letting you know. Cool. Perfect. No problem. Come on in, be around our team, be around our players. That's something that, quite frankly, they felt that they didn't have before. Whether past regimes did or didn't do that, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do things. It just is different. Coach Tucker is very open to that, taking place. So that's, once you tell them that, then you see their shoulders kind of relax, and now they're really more attentive to listen to what you got to say. But at the same time, it's got to be a two-way street. To me, being an alumni means now it's time for you to give back to the program. So whether that's signing up for this Iron Sharpens Iron initiative, whether that's sending in videos about being a Spartan dog, whether that's supporting our team, positively on social media, whether that's, donating with your wallet, or anything that we ask you to do or request, that's how you can help the program. But we had a lot of guys donate their time, donate their resources to help. Todd Anderson, a former fullback here, is also a registered sleep coach. He was our sleep coach for all year. Devin Salmon, who played defensive tackle and offensive line here, he customized his shoes, so he just painted some kicking cleats for us. Of course, Clinton Jones and Gene Washington donating their time. Everything Curtis Daniel did. We had 10 former players kind of pilot this mentorship program last year. So we have a lot of guys from different eras that are donating their time to benefit us. And other than that, the conversations are just awesome. I mean, they're excited to be a part of this. Again, they've never had an opportunity to be on a call like that before, to see each other. Some of these guys haven't seen each other in years, and you could just feel that energy. I had to hit the mute all button because for the first 15 minutes, it was just former players just talking to each other, just fired up to be around each other. And I was like, hey, we got an agenda here, but I promise once I'm done, which is what I did, I made somebody else to host, and I jumped off to go to a team meeting, and they stayed on for another hour with each other, just catching up. So that's the family we have as Spartan Dogs. And just to have them as a resource is really important.
If I could, one other thing real quick, since we got you, man. Want to ask you about Mike Tressel moving on. I know he was your position coach, and I think in a conversation we had when you came back, he was a guy that sort of inspired you to go into coaching or just into football, post playing. Just curious about what you guys talked about, when you learned he was leaving, and maybe what you said to him, I guess, about his impact on you and all that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Coach Tress has had a tremendous impact on everything I've done football wise. From recruiting me out of DeMatha to obviously playing here, to now coming back. He was the first person to call me to congratulate me on getting the opportunity here. I'm definitely going to miss having him around. We have that special relationship, as you should with your position coach, as you hope to with your position coach. And when he got this opportunity, I just told him I'm proud of him. Love him to death, love his family. His wife is phenomenal. His kids are phenomenal. And I know he's going to go do great things at UC. So that's how this business works. It's always about getting an opportunity to either, move up, if you want to call it that, or get an opportunity to spread your wings. And he's a tremendous coach. He did an awesome job last year transitioning from linebackers to safeties. He's the epitome of a football coach. I mean, really any conversation you have with him is going to be about ball. Like, that's all we talk about is ball. And just to stop him in the hallway or have him come to my office and us reminisce on the days when I was playing, or go over defensive things or compare to what we're doing now. I love that. So I'm definitely gonna miss him, but I wish him the best. And I'm gonna be watching all those games to see how he does for sure.
Thanks, Darien.
Our next question will go to Audrey Dahlgren.
Hey, Darien, with Clinton and Gene speaking to the team, how did that go in terms of how did it resonate with everybody? And did they know the story, Duffy Doherty's story and the recruiting strategy that he had? And, how many players knew that or didn't know?
So we tried to prep them for sure. We try to give them as much information as possible. But really what I prefaced them with is it's really not going to hit you how important this conversation is that you're having probably until you're out of here. And maybe even a few years down the road. I mean, I'm, 6 years now removed. And the fact that I get an opportunity to talk to Gene Washington often, and his daughter Maya often, or the fact that, Clinton Jones calls me every week now after setting that up. I mean, it's awesome for me. For the players, they really appreciated the call for sure. They had a lot of great questions. They understand the importance of it. But, it's young college kids. So they're probably like, yeah, this is awesome. This is cool. But as they get older, I think they're really going to understand how important it was to have these gentlemen here with us and to get an opportunity to experience what they're doing. Because it's of course the Underground Railroad of college football coming through Michigan State and the integration of college football. That's the most important piece. But these two were excellent football players. They're top 10 draft picks in the NFL. They played the game at the highest level. They won championships to NFL, and they still know the game. So it wasn't just, a couple guys coming on talking about the olden days. They were talking about scheme and ball. They watched every single game, and now you have them as a resource. They both asked me to pass their number along to everybody. They've already connected with some of our players. Like, again, these are things that just they weren't happening before. So just to get that opportunity, eventually once Maya continues to, get on the banks of the Red Cedar more heavily, streamlined out there, we'll watch it as a team for sure when we get an opportunity to do that. I've seen it, I think twice now. It's a great movie, of course. Again, just being a part of that and being a part of that history, it does resonate with our players. They get it. And then I think 5-10 years down the road, they're going to really, really get it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Looks like we have one more question from Chris Lauer.
Hey, Darren, you kind of made mention of the building being on lockdown, and I wanted to kind of ask about back in the spring and coming up here in the next couple weeks. How has the pro day experience changed? Because it's obviously a critical part and component for these guys in their future. How was it last spring without that? And how is it going to be different this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think last year not having it, was difficult for the guys that were looking for an opportunity. That was the most frustrating thing for me to see. And again, it's nobody's fault. It's just the way that it was with COVID, and it shut down a lot of things that benefit people. Whether it's pro day or whether it's people's businesses being shut down, furloughs happening, people getting laid off. It was just a tough, difficult time, tough, difficult year for a lot of people. And as we know, a lot of the borderline draft picks and guys that are going to be priority free agents, they make their money and they get their opportunity through pro day. What I can say, though, is that being able to have it this year because we got our protocols in place is going to be huge for our guys that are coming out this year and the guys from last year. Coach Tucker is going to allow the guys that didn't get an opportunity last year to participate in pro day to participate this year. So for the guys that stayed in shape, which all of them did, and I don't have an exact list of those who will be participating, but I would assume, the Josh Butlers, Tyreek Thompsons of the world, Brian Lewerke's, players like that didn't necessarily get an opportunity last year to land on an NFL team for a long time, mainly because they didn't get a pro day. They'll have an opportunity this year to compete. And again, that's just Coach Tucker being Coach Tucker. He recognizes that it was a missed opportunity for players last year. He means what he says when if you played here, whether you played for me or not, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you out. And this is going to be a great way to do that. Scott Aligo, our director of player personnel, is the one heading up that process with the NFL, with the scouts and with pro day. And as soon as he told me that, I was incredibly excited to hear that because it's going to give our guys an opportunity to participate. So again, what it's going to look like, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure it's going to be set up in a way that's COVID safe. I'm not sure what, media involvement will be in that regard. I just know that I'm excited for our guys to get an opportunity. I know how important Pro Day was for me. And I know, not without having it, I wouldn't have gotten any opportunity to be a professional athlete. So for these guys to get that opportunity is going to be really important for them. And I know they'll be ready for it.
How about just even without that over the course of the last year, how is that scouting changing? Have you tried to be a liaison maybe to some of those teams for guys to build that relationship when they don't necessarily have that on-field component to do that at these events?
For sure. So the big addition for us is Scott Aligo. He was a scout for 7 years in the NFL. He's now director of player personnel. He knows every single scout in the league, pretty much every GM, and he's got these guys on speed dial. So the way he's able to communicate with NFL personnel about our guys is something we've never had here before in terms of that process. And then how it's completely 180 from anything we've ever had here before in terms of how we are able to get our guys access to the NFL and just make sure the NFL knows about our players and gets good information on our players. It also, of course, is a benefit to have Coach Tucker, who's coached in the NFL for years, so he knows all these people as well. Just again, I'm a sponge when it comes to what Scott does in that regard. So I'm always trying to learn how he does things, how he looks at evaluations. He's been there, done that. His job for 7 years was relying on the decisions he made in terms of choosing which college athletes to take. So he takes that very serious. He's able to sit down with all our players one-on-one and explain exactly how the process is. And it's not just what he thinks it is, it's what he knows he is. And he's able to give good information in the NFL. So it's been a pleasure to work alongside him in that regard. You can't have a better resource than somebody like Scott to be able to do that. And just like everything's been virtual. So, normally the NFL scouts are able to come on campus and watch practice, things like that. We've just had to do things virtually, but everyone's had to adapt. And again, without having Scott here, I'm not sure what it would look like, but having him here, it's been tremendous. Just the change that I've seen, just based on how we handle the whole NFL process.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.
You too as well.